It's December 6th, the second Sunday of Advent, and I'm really glad you've tuned in again today. By now, you've eaten 5 or 6 of your Advent chocolates, if that's the kind of calendar you have. Maybe you have a Lego calendar or a Kinder Egg, or maybe you have a decoration. We have one like this in our house, and we move the snowflake along. So I'm going to move it to the 6th today. This was given to us as a gift many years ago, and it hangs up. However you are counting down to the big day, I'm sure that the excitement in your house is starting to grow. Maybe you have a tree up already and your house is decorated. It's getting exciting. Let's start off today with some prayer. Advent is the season of the church where we prepare our hearts and our minds to receive the greatest gift of all, and that is Jesus Christ. Today we're going to talk about the journey that Mary and Joseph had to take before Jesus was born. Caesar Augustus had demanded a census, and a census is a count or a list of how many people are in an area. And Caesar Augustus wanted that, so he knew how much to tax people. You've probably heard the adults in your life talk about tax, and I don't imagine they talk about it with smiles on their faces, but it is a fact of life. There's census that exist today, and we either have to fill out a card and mail it in, or now we can go online and type in our information and send it in. But in Mary and Joseph's day, you had to walk to the place of your where your family is from, and for Joseph, that was Bethlehem. So he and Mary had to load up and go to Bethlehem. Have you ever packed for a really long road trip? Perhaps you've taken some snacks, juice boxes and water bottles, your phone or tablet, charger, of course, maybe a pillow so you could have a rest. Mary and Joseph, they would have packed slightly differently. First off, there was no car, of course, so they had a donkey, and you know that, I'm sure, from the stories that you've seen. Lots of the pictures we see show Mary riding the donkey, and although she may have, in the final leg of their journey, mostly the donkey would have been used to carry their supplies, and Mary would have walked. They would have had bedrolls and some food and some water. Joseph maybe brought some tools. He was a carpenter, so maybe he picked up some work along the way or was able to trade his services for other things. So a little bit different than the road trip you would have taken. They also had to go through hostile territory. They had to go through Samaria. And at this time, the Samaritans and the Jews didn't like each other. So going through this territory, Mary and Joseph had to face the reality that they could have been ignored. If they offered to buy food, they could have been turned away, or even a room for the night, they could have been turned away. The journey took 4 to 6 days, so they would have had to figure out something to do with their nights. Without a room to stay in, that meant they're sleeping under the stars, and hopefully it wasn't raining, and hopefully it wasn't too terribly cold for them in those times. Going through the wilderness as well and staying outside, they had to deal with the prospect of either wild animals coming after their donkey or themselves, or bandits, thieves that would come and take all their possessions. Have you ever had to walk past a group of people you're a little bit scared of? Maybe you're a little bit younger and you're at school and there's a group of grade 8 kids down the hall, and where you have to walk past them. That anxiety you feel, that's probably similar to what Mary and Joseph felt for part of their trip. So again, the trip would have taken about 4 to 6 days on foot, and it's 130 kilometers. So to put that into perspective for you, I want you to imagine Thorndale United Church. And if you were to walk from the church to West Missouri Public School, that's only about 1 kilometer. Well, we have 130 to go, so that's not near far enough. So what if we were to walk to downtown London? From the church to downtown London, it's 23 kilometers. So again, not far enough. So let's think a little bit further. Let's go to the CN Tower. From the church to the CN Tower is 183 kilometers. So that's too far. We only need to go 130 kilometers. So we could go from the church to the school back and forth 65 times, or we can go from the church to downtown London back and forth 3 times. Whichever route you take, I hope you have some comfortable shoes. Joseph and Mary would have had to find a way to pass the time, so they would have talked to each other. Joseph probably told stories from the scrolls, from scripture. We have those stories available to us today. They're found in the Old Testament of our Bibles. Maybe they traveled with a group and they got to know those people a little bit better, as well as learning about themselves a little bit more. And again, talk about scripture and how they felt about it, and continuously learning about themselves and about God. As hard as this journey was, they had to do it. They had no choice. And their attitude would have played a huge factor in how quickly the trip would have gone. I'm positive throughout that entire trip, Mary and Joseph never lost sight of the fact that God was with them the whole time. Next time you're on a long road trip in the car, I'd like you to consider your own attitude. A positive attitude will help make the time go by so much faster. You know this. You've heard this before, I'm quite sure. But think about it. Now you're in the car with your parents or maybe another adult figure in your life, and it's a perfect opportunity to create some memories and to get to know them better. And they'd like to get to know you better too. And it's an opportunity to ask those really tough questions that parents can't run away from. They love that. I'm just teasing, you know. But knowing that, I'd like you to be thankful for the opportunity that you have to be in the vehicle or wherever you are. Be thankful you don't have to walk the trip, and be thankful that now's an opportunity to get to know somebody a little bit better. Life is about relationships. Get to know the people around you. And the most important thing I'd like you to take out of the whole story is that throughout whatever journey you're on in your life, know that God is with you. You are never alone. The United Church Creed says that we are never alone. We are in God's world. And I'd like you to remember that. God will never leave you. Today's story can be found in the book of Luke, chapter 2, verse 1 through 7. About that time, Emperor Augustus gave orders for the names of all the people to be listed in the record books. The first records were made when Quirinius, the governor of Syria. Everyone had to go to their own hometown to be listed. So Joseph had to leave Nazareth in Galilee and go to Bethlehem in Judea. Long ago, Bethlehem had been King David's hometown, and Joseph went there because he was from David's family. Mary was engaged to Joseph and traveled with him to Bethlehem. She was soon going to have a baby, and while they were there, she gave birth to her firstborn son. She dressed him in baby clothes and laid him on a bed of hay because there was no room for them in the inn. I'd like to thank you for watching today. Have a great week. God is always with you. Take care, and we'll see you next week.